Hey guys, today we are going to do a little tutorial for this simple little stippled pumpkin acorn fall scene with a little bit of hand lettering. I'm just going to use a pencil, an eraser, a black outliner, and some Copic or alcohol markers. You can use a Micron or a Sharpie pen as I'm showing there. The markers that I'm using are listed below. I'm also going to list them in the description and on the blog post. I'm using Copics, but you can use any alcohol marker. Just pick colors that are similar to what I have listed down there. Alrighty, I also used a makeup brush, just like a big foundation brush, to sweep the stuff that I'm erasing away, and although I don't show it here, I also use a ruler. Alright, and now we're just going to start with a big circle followed by two smaller circles overlapping that center one. And this is going to be our pumpkin. From here you want to take two little lines up from the middle circle. I'm going to round one of mine to make it curvy, and then you can connect those lines and then draw a little oval between them, and that is the top of the stem. Now you can pull two sort of half circles out from either side of the stem, and these are going to be two big leaves coming off of your pumpkin. I like to put a little vein in the middle. Afterwards, just draw some loose and curly lines coming out. They don't need to be perfect. The more wacky and whimsical, the better. Now we're going to draw a little harder, and all we're doing here is outlining the perimeter of the three circles. Now take your eraser. I'm actually using my electric eraser just because I like the smaller eraser size, and I'm just going to erase where these circles overlapped the center. The outer circles overlap the center circle. Yeah, but keep the outside of the center circle intact because that is going to add dimension to your pumpkin. And see, I'm going to go over here and make those lines a little darker. Now pull in some more little half circles or curves just to give your pumpkin more texture. The next thing we're going to do is add some little tiny veins coming off of the center veins of the leaves. And you'll want to use a light hand since these are thinner lines. And then we're going to make the stem darker by going over the perimeter. We're going to erase the line in the middle of the top of the stem. And then just pull some slightly curving diagonal lines through your stem, kind of like stripes. And this will add some texture to your stem and make it look more woody. Okay, and I'm just brushing off some eraser crumbs. Alright, now I want to draw a little acorn over on the side. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw sort of a long oval, very thin, think of like a hot dog, and then a little arch coming off the bottom, and then we'll do a little square at the top for the top of the acorn. Now add some little lines across the acorn crown. Now let's add some curvy lines for a nice little fall leaf, a crispy fallen leaf. We're going to add the veins just like we did in the pumpkin's leaves. Now it's time to pull out your ruler, and we're going to try to make these hand letters kind of neat. And you can put your hand lettering wherever you want to put it. I just decided to put it over here. I'm still really learning hand lettering, but I thought it would be fun to do anyway, even if I'm not an expert at it. You can find other hand lettering tutorials if you like and follow them for your pumpkin scene, but I'm just going to do my best, and if you like it, that's wonderful. Hopefully you do. So now that we have our little writing template, just go in and do your best to create some interesting letters. What I am writing here is happy fall, y'all. And I'm just going to tell you now, I'm not sure if the way that I did y'all is the correct way. I'm thinking it might actually be Y apostrophe ALL, but I did YA apostrophe LL. You do it however you want to do it. It's not a real word, so we spell it how we want to, don't we? All right, now a good rule of thumb is to break up the fonts a little bit. So if you have cursive for happy, manuscript, or regular letters for fall would be better, and then more cursive maybe at the bottom for y'all, or you could do it vice versa. Either way, just have fun, play around, and don't be afraid to erase. I really like my fall and y'all, but I'm not too happy with how happy came out, so I wish I would have erased. But anyway, take your pen and go over each of your hand lettered words, just real thin, and then take your eraser and erase your writing template and the letters that you wrote with pencil. Make sure you clean up all of that all of those eraser crumbs. Now we're going to take the Micron pen or whatever ink pen you're using, and we're just going to create sort of fake calligraphy. And that means wherever you wrote downward with your, wherever your stroke went downward when you were writing your letters, you want to create a thicker line. So you'll see I went down on the vertical lines of the H, so I made those bigger. I went down on the vertical lines of the P, I made that bigger, and so on and so forth. If you have multiple size pens, you can use, bigger pen tips for the thicker parts of your letters, or you can just draw them out and fill them in, which is pretty much what I'm doing here. I do go between a 01 and a 05 micron pen, but it's not really necessary. It's just more convenient. And make sure all of your letters are showing up pretty good. You don't want any of them to really fade into the background. I had a little difficulty down here with y'all, as you see, but I was holding my grandbaby for this part, so I apologize. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is go in and outline our pumpkin scene. And for me, I like the outer perimeter of each of the images to be, or each of the objects in the image that are important to be thicker, and then the little detailed lines to be a little thinner. But you do this however you want to. As you'll notice, I also went in and added some little hatching down at the under the pumpkin and around the leaves and acorn. This is just sort of some very light shadowing, I guess. That's just showing you where I'm using a bigger pen for those outlines, and then I'm going in for some thinner lines for these veins in the leaves and the secondary lines in the pumpkins, and the little lines in the acorn crown, and again for the whimsical vines on the pumpkin. Now don't forget to go in and erase all of your pencil work, and this is why it's good to write lightly, because it's easier to erase. And now I'm taking the E18 and just stippling in some shadow areas on the pumpkin. Stippling is adding color with the dots, as you see me doing here. Since this is the shadow, I'm doing it pretty sparingly. Next, I'm going to take E08 and add some more shadow areas. And this is where we'll add a little bit of shadow at the top, I didn't want to do too much of the darker shadow there, since that would be closest to the light source in my mind. And stippling can be a little time consuming. We're doing YR16, and this is where we're going to add more of the orangey, the brighter orange tone. But stippling is a little more time consuming, but I think the effect is kind of interesting, especially against the black lines. It's just, you know, something different to try. You're really wanting to leave some of the white negative space out there. That way it just sort of adds to the texture and the style of the image. And the great thing about stippling is if you have markers that do not have a brush tip, you can just use the bullet nib. It works out really great. So here I am taking E08 and some of the E18 and just adding a little bit of shadow in the fallen leaf beneath the pumpkin. Adding some of that YR16 as well. Then some of the YR23 and the Y17. I'm also going to go in and just add a little of that Y17 to brighten up the pumpkin a bit. E29. We're going to go in and add some stippling to the stem of our pumpkin. And to the acorn. Remember, these are our darkest shadows. Then we're taking E37, doing our second or medium tone. And finally, we're going to use E25 to do our lightest color in the acorn and the stem. And try to leave some white if you can. Now we're using E37 and just adding some of that to the fallen leaf. Now we're using YG99 and we're going to go in and add our shadows to the leaves. Really focusing on the lower outer perimeter and along the vein. Now we're using YG95 to add some more shadows, though a little lighter in color. And then we're going to take YG63 and just kind of dot that through the other colors a bit, just to give these leaves a little more variety. Now take YG99 and sort of follow the hatching that you did earlier with the pen, and then spread it out a little more. Right, then we're going to use our YG97 just to scratch in some groundwork here, or sketching some groundwork, I suppose. And that good old YG63 just to mute that down a bit. It's got kind of a blue in it, so it cools down those warm greens a little bit. Now we're going to use the E08 along the thicker lines in fall, and we're going to use YR16 through all of the cursive letters in happy and y'all. Now at the end I didn't really like the marker over the lettering. I wish I would have just left it black, but if you like it, you know, do it. If you don't like it, don't do it. The next thing we're going to do is take YG95 and trace over the vines coming off of the pumpkin. Totally optional, just like everything else we did, really. Personally, I didn't like it. I think I liked it better when we had the inked, just the penned out hand lettering and the penned out vines. Don't forget to sign it, and you know, thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.